Welcome, friends. Hey, it's the Broken Brains Monday Mental Tip with me, Dwight, your host. I was thinking about mindfulness a bit. In fact, I was thinking about where do we find mindfulness? Finding mindfulness. It's a skill. You could call it findfulness or findfulness. Those are a couple of things you can do with those words. But I just thought I would share with you two examples of mindfulness moments and thoughts that I did not find on purpose, but sort of stumbled into. I don't know that these will be ones that will specifically work for you, but they do work for me. And isn't it all about me? No, not just kidding, but hopefully it can be inspiring to look for and find mindfulness around you, even in places that you weren't thinking. So let's dig into that. The first example is Ping ID, if you're familiar. I don't know a ton about it, but Ping ID is an app. It's a software that generates an access or authorization code for certain websites and services. It seems to be mostly things that have to do with medical records and a little bit higher security things. You have to establish and set up an account with it that is approved by the place you're trying to log into. And essentially, what it is if you're going to a certain company, and lots of companies use this thing, I guess, it asks you after you provide your login and password and whether authentication you have, it asks for another authentication, which is a code. And the code is generated by Ping ID. So you go on there and you see a code, and that code changes. I think it's about every 60 seconds. So you have to enter it, before it regenerates, or you enter the one that generates next or whatever. It's not really that hard to do, but if you don't have it all set up just right, then you wouldn't know how to get into the website, which is, I think, the whole point of its existence. So here's the thing. A little while ago, I used it to log into a thing I have to log into for work. And after I'd logged in, I did whatever I was doing and then went over and was doing some other paperwork and such. And I happened to glance over, and I'd left my phone on the little phone holder thingy next to my computer, and I noticed I'd left it on, and so it kept generating this new, code that would appear every 60 seconds or so. Here's a new one. Here's a new one. And it occurred to me that this program is just sort of sitting out there doing this all the time, and that even though I'm not looking at it like right now, it's generating new codes every minute or so. And so, oddly enough, there's been some times when there's a lot going on and I need a little moment of Zen or mindfulness. A couple of times I've thought about the ongoing behind the scenes work of Ping ID. And once again, kind of funny to think about that this is just going on all the time. And so it's something that I don't witness, I don't see, but it is happening any given moment. The moment that I'm saying this and the moment that you're listening to this, the moment that you hit pause and then unpause it 6 hours later when you're doing dishes or whatever it is, however you do your podcasting. So that's a little thing. The second one is kind of similar to something that is going on all around, especially certain times of the year, as you'll see, that I don't really think about. So several years back, I got a microscope. I hadn't had one since I was a kid. And one of the reasons I got it is I used to do a lot of work with quite young clients that would come in. I worked with a lot of children. And so when you work with children, what you do is you find activity and play and games, and that becomes sort of the language of therapy. Kids express themselves through activity, mostly. And one of the activities we would do is we'd go out into this big backyard that was out behind the building of the office that I rented at the time. And we would go and find things, small things, that we could come in and look at on this microscope. And we would talk while we did that, and sometimes we'd even make little connections of like, oh, that makes me think this or something like that. And sometimes it had to do with the microscope. Sometimes it did not. Sometimes it was just, something to do while we were talking. That'd make a whole interesting conversation in and of itself. If you go back to one of the history episodes that I released about play therapy, it's some examples of how you use activity-based therapy with kids. But either way, one of the things that I got to notice is that one of the prettiest things that we would find in the backyard were leaves, and in particular, dead leaves around the time of autumn. And I live in an area that is not necessarily, it's not choked full of trees, but we do have them. And when fall hits, just like many areas, we have them change color, they die, they fall out of the tree. You understand how leaves work, hopefully. And when you put a dead leaf under a microscope and look at it really close up, you see the same thing as any leaf, but it's separated into little cells, basically, and you see these little, whatever they are, I don't really know the terms of their veins or whatever they are, that run through the leaf, and you've got these distinct little cells. And it looks kind of like looking down on a very green cityscape of some kind. To me, anyway, it just looks like little roads you could drive down or walk down, a little countryside. When the leaf is dead and brown and ugly, when the light is shining through it and you're looking at it, it looks like amber colors or gold even. And it just looked beautiful. And it got me thinking, and I still think every now and then as I'm walking around, especially that time of year if my feet are crunching on dead leaves, I'm like, look at all these things that I'm surrounded by that are really, really quite beautiful if you look at them in the right way. And they're still that way. They're still beautiful. I just can't see it right now. So how in the world does this become a mental health tip? Well, if it's not obvious, it just something to keep in mind that you are probably surrounded by things that would catch your attention. And as you've heard me say before, mindfulness is not about being zen and focused all the time on only one thing and all that kind of stuff. Certainly directed meditation can get you there. But mindfulness is really about being distracted into the present. And particularly if you are paying attention to something in the present that helps you to feel tied in or engaged with the world around you in one way or another, to be able to escape for a moment from the needs of planning for the future or the anxieties of the future or some of the regret and fears associated with the past. Okay. And if you can do that even for a moment, it's shown to be quite helpful to our mental health. So look around, if you will, see the things that are in your life and in the world, and just see if there isn't something that is ongoing, present focused, or even beautiful that we might be passing by a lot of the time. I'd love to hear from anybody if you find any of those little things that work for you. You can always go to dwighthurst.com/contact or dwighthurst@gmail.com. If you go to the website, there's lots of, there's lots of that there to contact as well. We'll be back with a longer episode tomorrow. In fact, it's the second Halloween episode for 2024 in pursuance of the goal of developing gameplay and activity-based therapy. Ran a little RPG session that had to do with Halloween in the sense of vampires and sort of a little fun thing like that. I thought everybody would get a kick out of it. And also it's a way to demonstrate how people can have that a good time. I'm also releasing a follow-up to that's going to describe how it was planned out to have some therapeutic and psychological goals in there as well. So that's coming out tomorrow on Tuesday. And then, of course, got the little history lesson on Thursday, which is also Halloween. So maybe I should make the Thursday history tied in with that too. Maybe I will. Thanks for listening. See you later. Bye.